One of them twiddled a dagger about in his hands, letting it dance along his gloves playfully with skill. He didn't speak a single word, nor did his friend. They just looked about in a nervous manner. Pillagers, bandits, marauders, assassins, spies. The list of possible natures for these intimidating men went on and on. Regardless of their purpose, I suddenly felt less powerful. Weak, even. In all my years, animals had always been the only living danger ever encountered by me. Why wouldn't either of them talk? A small portion of me wished to gain at least a tidbit of information before pressing on. Or retreating, perhaps. Maybe a bit of patience would work out in my favor. The soft grass in the ditch provided some comfort for kneeling, and time was on my side. It could have been minutes, maybe an hour. No movement. No speaking. Was I just being paranoid? Maybe they were new guard units. Factions of mercenaries trotting through the region always were taking jobs. Most often guard posts in cities. But those types always took the big jobs. Whatever put more coin in their pockets. Redstone wasn't a wealthy town. The leader of it wasn't even any greater than the average farmer. There's no way they could afford such a cost, nor could there be a reason. Another thought sprang to mind as I knelt in that damp grass. What did it matter to me? I had been banished from this town. If these men were truly bad, why should I risk myself to stop them? Still, those thoughts aside, my heart raced with concern. Not for myself, but for those who hadn't cast me aside. Not everyone agreed with the leader's decision. In a flash of that single moment, my plans were set in stone. If even one good person could be rescued from the dire situation, it would be worth every effort. Getting into the town would be the next step forward. As I prepared to shift through the foliage to sneak away, a whirling sound pierced through the air. The next sound to follow was a dagger clanking to the stone ground, immediately followed by a thick thud of one of the men's bodies. A dark, black arrow impaled into the midst of his chest. His friend reacted in alarm, rather speedily, drawing his blade and screaming a vicious battle cry into the distance, the only return being his own wailing echo. He waited fearlessly, no other arrows appearing out of the dense forest across the way. Why stop at just one? It was a clear shot on the other. A rustling soon came from the brush across the way, a young man in torn hunter's clothing emerging from the thicket. He was carrying a large black bow. He slid down a crevice, disappearing into a valley just a slight bit beyond the way. I could hear a light laugh come from the man standing only a few feet away. Other than that, he remained still and silent. Another person burst forth from the brush, dressed in that same dark armor, a heavy red bow drawn with wicked-looking arrow at the ready. He loosed his shot quickly, down into the valley beyond. An agonizing groan of miserable pain emanated from down below. A bitter cry as the disheveled hunter surely had met his end. I laid lower, backing away slowly from the roadway. That is, until the other warrior came closer, dragging the limp, lifeless body of the hunter on his shoulder. He threw the man to the ground, causing him to sputter in pain as the arrow was forced out of his gut from the impact. Showing no mercy, the other guard, or whatever he was, kicked him in the side forcefully, working out another painful grunt. The worst part of it all was the silence. These warriors did everything without a single word spoken. They still weren't communicating in any way. Just simply acting. When it all seemed over and done with, I was unable to move. In a mere moment, I'd seen two men meet their final fates. Or so it seemed. The strangers left the hunter's body to make their way to the corpse of their brother. Corpse probably wouldn't be the correct term, considering the fact that he began to shuffle ever so slightly. Lifting himself off the ground, arrow still deep within his chest, he quickly reached with a gloved hand to grip at the object embedded into him, yanking it forcefully out with a sickening gushing sound and tossing it to the ground immediately after. The others lowered their hands to aid him fully onto his feet. He made no grunts nor mentions of pain at all. It was as if he'd been completely untouched. One bent down to grasp his dagger, returning it to him hastily. They didn't exchange even the slightest of glances. After all of that, they simply shoved the body of the hunter to the side and remained at their post. Turning themselves to look directly at the road into the city, I followed suit and did my best to look in the same direction over the mound of earth before me, seeing another figure approaching. It was the fourth rider. He was carrying a sturdy box with him, a chest woven with wood and iron, crumbs of dirt and earth lightly trailing off of it. His face was nearly invisible beneath his hood, even as he got closer. I was only able to catch a glimpse of the wicked, crooked smile he was giving. The man approached his brethren and unlatched the box with haste, the other three nodding their heads at what was inside before he quickly shut the lid with a resounding clank. I wanted desperately to know what was in there, but there was not a single indication. Gold, weaponry, jewels, any combination of the three. A piercing whistle shot through the icy air. One of the riders had his fingers placed along his lips, making this high-pitched call out towards the forest. At once, out of the shadows of the canopy before the road, their horses appeared in unison, galloping down the valley and up to their owners. They wasted no time in tying the box onto one of the saddles, taking extra care to ensure it was absolutely bound. Two of them grasped the wounded hunter, wrapping his arms in a rope and placing him across the hind end of one of their stallions. Upon securing their cargo, they immediately climbed onto their mounts. The one who had been carrying the treasure box gave out a sharp yell, taking his heels to the horse's side, rapidly heading down the road, followed soon by the others. And just like that, these figures were little more than distant dots, shadows fading behind the mountains. I fell back onto the grass with heavy breaths, feeling safe for the moment, but not secure. What I'd witnessed in this brief time would haunt me without mercy.